Welcome back to a new video on this channel, and on this occasion is crystalline. Everything on this guide is in chapters. If you look at the description or the timeline, you can jump to a section or skip the ones you don't want. If you like this, please like and subscribe. This channel is supported by viewers only. If you want to buy me a coffee to say thanks and help the channel keep going on, you can. You have links in the description for PayPal, YouTube Thanks, and Patreon. Right, so at the top of the plugin, you have an icon right here that says Load Default. I'm going to be using the default preset every time we start a new section. Just like in the reverb, you can choose your pre-delay and your decay, and this is the start and the end. These controls are pretty standard. If I play something, that's going to be the start and the end, and if I go all the way down to the end, it's going to be much longer. All right, that's the decay. Now, these controls are standard, but you can choose to work in milliseconds or sync it to your DAW tempo. If I click here and here, now we are working in milliseconds, which is of course a little bit different, but the fact that you can go to sync and then sync it with your tempo, it means that you can fine-tune your pre-delay and you don't need to bring the calculator to find the amount of milliseconds that you need to select for your for the tempo of your song. The output section is really interesting. You have, of course, your dry and the wet to balance the signal between your dry and your completely wet signal. This is a very common control. Notice that at the bottom you have an icon. It says wet lock. This means that when you lock it and you toggle different presets, the dry and the wet controls will remain the same. Then inside the output you have the other options. The reverse, for example. If I toggle this on, now the effect is going to be in reverse. So if I play it, I play a key, first I get my key and then I get the effect in a different way. Now, this is really interesting, especially, maybe not right now, but when you maybe go up on the decay and you maybe play some keys, you get a nice, tiny, little effect. Then you have your freeze, and this is something that you can find on a lot of reverbs, but especially on delays. If I play it, if I place a chord, and I'm getting the reverb right now, I'm gonna just press it, and it's gonna freeze the reverb, and I'm not playing anything right now. I'm not holding the keys. So whatever is going on the reverb is going to freeze it, and then just loop it back. And if I want to record something new, I freeze it. I release my keys, and now I get this, this sound. Yeah, again, it is a pretty standard control on some devices. But this creates some, cool textures, because now I have something in the background, and I can still, manage the dry and the wet, but if I play some keys, I can hear whatever is I'm playing. But, there's no reverb effect because it's being frozen. When you turn it off, it's going to decay. Ducker will duck the level of your wet signal when it's receiving sound. I'm going to go all the way wet. Maybe I'm going to start right here. I'm going to put it at maybe 50%. If you double click, it's going to go back to the defaults, but I'm going to go all the way wet. So if I play a key and the ducker is all the way down, nothing is going to happen. If I go all the way up and I play a key, I can hear almost no reverb. It's just way down in volume. Now, when I release the keys, it's going to stop ducking the reverb, because this is what it's doing. It's ducking the volume of the reverb, the effect. As soon as I release the keys I'm holding right now, I'm going to release it in 3, 2, 1. The volume of the reverb comes up. If you have a longer tail, it's going to be a little bit more obvious. It's ducking. I'm going to release the keys, and the volume comes up. And if I maybe make it 50% just to get something, volume goes down, I release the keys, and then the reverb effect comes up. Now you can choose the intensity right here, maybe go to 50%, and it's going to duck it, but it will not be that aggressive. I'm going to go all the way up and all the way up on the dry and the wet. And you have two different profiles for the ducker. You have gentle on. This is the one I've been using. If I toggle this off, now the effect is going to be a little bit different. Instead of smoothly go up when we release a key or when we stop playing something, it will go really quickly up. I play it, it's going to duck, right? It's doing the same thing right now. I'm going to release it in 3, 2, 1. Comes back up really quickly. Now, of course, if I do 50%, something like that, and I do the same, but, with the other mode, it's completely different. And this is completely up to you and whatever it is that you want to do. Alright, so let's talk about the reflections. The most obvious is going to be the size, and this is the room size. Right here, when you toggle through the different spaces, you have tiny, small, then medium, and then, large, and then spacey. And all of this, of course, depends on your start and your end. Small, it will not sound the same if I go all the way up, even though it's tiny, but it's, still really long. It sounds tiny. If I go to the spacey, it's completely different, right? It's much longer. Then the sparkle, what it does, it makes the reflections brighter. And I'm going to go maybe all the way up to spacey, and I'm going to go all the way down in sparkle. If I play something, and remember, I'm all the way wet, so you're just hearing the reverb. It sounds like that. Now, I'm going to go all the way up to 100%. Notice it's just much brighter. Darker, and then just brighter. And all of this is completely up to you and whatever sound. It's maybe you're playing something that's way bright, like I'm playing right now. And if the reverb is just too bright, it's going to be in between of everything. Maybe I want to make it darker. Now I can hear the dry signal a little bit better. It's not in the way, right? The reverb is not in the way. I'm going to double click to go back to defaults, and then you have the width. And if you you're listening through headphones or maybe some good speakers, you can hear that the signal is stereo. By going all the way down, you just make it mono. If you go all the way up, you can go to stereo in 0 at 0 value. It's full stereo. And if you go over, it's going to be super wide. You can make it wider. Alright. On the depth section, you have some useful options. Usually reverbs consume a lot of CPU, so the resolution lets you choose between 3 different profiles. Now the first 2, if I go to the first one, it's eco-friendly. These ones are eco-friendly, and the other one, it's max as the plugin can go. And I gotta tell you, you can really hear the difference. I'm gonna go lower in resolution. I'm gonna go all the way up on the end and all the way wet so we can hear the effect. I have some noise so we can test all of this. If I go right here to the first one, it sounds good, but when we listen to the repetitions, it's a little bit choppy. If I go to the next one, the high, it's a little bit better. But then when you go to the highest, the pristine, you can really hear the difference. It's way smoother, not choppy as the first one. And even in this one is a bit darker, of course. Right, it's much, it's open, brighter, and it's just a little bit more smoother. This one is a bit choppy, but it's fun, right? Maybe your computer, you don't have a very good computer. You can choose a good, lower resolution. Now at the top, if you go all the way at the top, you can see an icon that says echo. When you turn this on, right now it's off by default. When you turn it on, it's going to disable or lock you to the minimum resolution, and it's going to disable the shimmer effect. Coming up next, it's going to be the modulation, and this is pitch modulation. It's very subtle if you go to minimum values, and it's going to be a little bit more obvious if you go up. Now, I have a synthesizer right here, and I'm going to be playing, I'm going to go all the way down and wet. I'm going to be playing a triangle, which is not super aggressive. It's very smooth, And if I do a pitch detuning on a triangle, you can really hear the changes. Now I'm gonna go all the way up, and if I play the triangle, we can hear that reverb, but it's not really moving. I'm gonna go all the way wet. You can hear it moving. If I make it wider, it's gonna be even more obvious. And yeah, that's the modulation. No modulation. Much more static. Go to up. It's just doing that detuning, which is super cool. Now, if this is too aggressive for you, you can go down and maybe just do a tiny little bit. And it will give you a little bit of movement. That it's always good on any kind of effects. Coming up next is going to be the shimmer. A shimmer effect detunes a parallel signal or many reflections or of the reverb effect. This is what a shimmer does. And I know it says shimmer right here, but it's not what we know as a shimmer effect, on a reverb at least. Now what it does is going to take the higher frequencies and slow them down. And this will make the decay of those frequencies slower. Since this is going to take the higher frequencies, right at the bottom you can choose where to start. Right now it's off. If you turn it on, it's going to go here by default. The ones at the bottom decides when you start grabbing those frequencies that are going to be getting longer. So you can start from the 2K, maybe 4K, or maybe 8K. And at the top, you have the intensity. It's 2x. It's going to be, 2x longer, or maybe 4 times longer, or maybe 6 times longer. Now I'm standing on the 2K and I'm standing on the 2X, so it's going to make them longer. I have a short type of decay. If I play it, it's not going to be that obvious. If I turn it off, it's, we can hear it a little bit, maybe. Now if I turn it on and go to max, and maybe I'm going to stand on the 2K, but now it's 6 times slower. Now we can hear it. And I'm using the same end and the same configuration, only starting from 2K, but now it's 6 times longer. Yeah, there we go. If I go to higher frequencies, if I turn it off, they're very short. Now this is fun, using this length, this end, just to show you how it works, but it becomes a little bit more obvious when you go up on the decay or the end. If I turn it off, much shorter. Now this will work on the 2K, 4K, and the 8K. So if I'm standing on 2K, I could play something lower. The decay for this portion is going to be the same, but the decay for this one is going to change for the higher frequencies. I'm going to turn it off. Yeah, they die. A lot sooner. But this is what the shimmer does. It's not a really shimmer effect, but it's something pretty unique to this reverb. And I gotta say, if you want the shimmer type of effect, if you want a real shimmer, maybe you need to use a shimmer type of reverb. The right section of the plugin is in charge to fine-tune the effect that comes out. First, you have the cleanup. Now, damping is a filter. It's just a filter. I'm gonna go all the way wet and maybe all the way back to the end so we can hear the effect. If I play it, this is what we get. Now, the damping is just a low pass and a high pass. If I go all the way down, we have, the full range. This is the high pass. It means that we're going to chop the lower frequencies. As I go up, it's going to start chopping the low frequencies from the wet signal, of course. And at some point, when you cross over maybe 2K or 3K, you're just chopping pretty much everything. Super bassy, a lot less bassy. And on the other side, it's going to be the same, but you're going to chop the higher frequencies, so you make it darker. The sides is a filter as well, just like this one, but it's just a little bit different. The filtering happens on the side information. This is why it's called sides, and it has a shape of a high-pass filter because it will remove the stereo information, leaving the mono section intact. That's the main purpose. If I go way aggressive and I do go all the way, it's gonna say 20 hertz, which is pretty low. It's below here, right here. So we are not cutting anything. It's super wide, and if I make it even wider and brighter, we can hear it. So maybe it's just too bassy. This frequency is just maybe too wide. I can start moving this, and now the lower frequencies below this point are going to be mono instead of stereo. But you're not killing the reverb effect, you're just making it mono. Just killing the sides. And this is, again, super useful if you have something bassy like I have right now. It's just much usable. If I go here, it's just way too much. Now this option is super useful. We usually do something like this when we are mixing or maybe producing something, but we do it with a different plugin after this one. In the case of this plugin, you do have it right here, and again, it's just super useful. Coming up next, it's going to be the gate. I'm gonna double click everything to go back to defaults, and this is a gate. Now on the left side, you have the threshold, and on the other side, you have the release. What this will do, it will gate the tail of the reverb. So when the volume reaches whatever threshold that you have right here, the gate effect will start, and the release decides how to do it. If you want to do it smoothly or you want a hard transition. I'm gonna go to maybe 60 or 70%, and I'm gonna be playing something, and I'm gonna be using this gate. Now I'm gonna go down. If I go down at some point, I'm gonna stop hearing the reverb effect, and I'm still playing my key. If I play it, nothing happens. So the signal needs to exceed the level in order for the gate to start. And how it happens, how aggressive it is going to be the release. Now the most common example for this is going to be some snares. I'm gonna play a drum clip, and everything is back to defaults. I'm not doing anything. I'm gonna go all the way wet. The reverb effect is only on the snares. So I want to gate those snares. If I go down, keep going down, at some point, I'm gonna match the level I want. And now it's happening. And if I go to dry and wet, maybe 50 or 60%, the gate is just, killing the tail of the reverb at some point. If I go more aggressive, it's gonna be a much more aggressive effect. Now the release is going to decide how it will release. If I go all the way up, is that the tail is a little bit longer, or shorter. If I go down, the tail is much smoother. Aggressive, it's just chopping it. If I go down, it's 441 milliseconds, so it's a little bit smoother when ducking. If I go all the way down, you're pretty much, you're not doing anything, pretty much. So right here, you decide the intensity, the aggressiveness, and right here, when you start gating. And now, I gotta say, this is a very useful feature. And the last part is going to be the shape. And this is a more EQ type of deal. Now, the tone is a tilt EQ. If I play something, this is gonna tilt it in some fashion. I'm gonna be playing something maybe with more harmonics. If I go all the way up, it's going to duck, maybe I'm gonna go all the way wet, is going to duck a little bit the lower frequencies and boost the higher frequencies. If I double click it, this one is just much more aggressive. And it's because I'm using a triangle. If I go up, it's brighter. And the lower goes down, the lower frequencies go down. It's a tilt EQ. If I go the other way, now it's gonna be a lot more bassier and less highs. You're boosting the lows and ducking the highs. This is how a tilt EQ works. You get more of the low, less of the highs, more of the highs, less of the low. Alright, so if you double click it by default, it's just ducking a little bit of the low frequencies. Now then the smoothing is a different type of EQ. This is a tilt. This one, I guess, it's notching, that type of EQ is a series of notches at some harsh frequencies. At 0%, it has no effect. So if I play something like that, has no effect. If I go all the way up, notice it sounds darker. Bright, darker. So yeah, this is what it does. I'm guessing again. It doesn't say on the manual. It it's ducking some of the known harsh frequencies at the very top, and this is of course why it sounds dark. And that's actually a good thing. Sometimes again, when it's just super bright, just on top of everything. If I maybe go here, it's just way too bright. It's just gonna make it darker. All the way down, just off. Way too bright. But it all depends on what you want to do. If by default is this, if you don't want to do this and handle this with the damping, or maybe the tone, or even the sparkle, you can make your tone darker. Then you have the warp, and this is a transient designer. I have a noise, something very pulsating, with a lot of transient, with a big transient, so we can test this. If I go all the way down, all the way up on the dry, and I play something, it's just going to sound like this. But what this does, again, is going to give you more attack if you go to the right side. And if I go to the other side, you can notice the difference. Notice that it's just chopping the transient, and we can hear the sustain more. So, less sustain, more transients, less transients, more sustain. If you think about this, it's just a cool sounding reverb. That's fine. On the market we have a lot of reverbs. This one sounds cool, but the additional, sparkle, the different resolutions, the modulation, the sync on the end, on the start and the end, then the reverse, the freeze, the ducker, then the EQ, the filters, the transient designer, even the gate makes this this plugin super handy and useful. But yeah, I kind of like it. This is not a review, it's just, a tutorial. But if you have to ask me, if you want to know my opinion, I kind of like it because it's handy. It's super handy. Okay, we are done pretty much. If you liked all of this and you learned something new, remember to like and subscribe. And this channel, again, is supported by viewers only. If you want to buy me a coffee to say thanks and help the channel keep going on, you can. You have links at the description for PayPal, YouTube thanks, and Patreon. See you on the next one.